Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Target Jobs webinar about sustainability. We are joined by people today that work within environment and sustainability. I'm really excited to be joined by recent graduates and those with more experience from a range of sectors to talk about how they have joined this sector and what they enjoy about it. There will be a chance for questions, so please put those into the question panel, and we will get round to them kind of halfway through the webinar. To start, Louis, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Louis. I work at Bloomberg as an ESG data specialist, so that's environmental, social, and governance, and more specifically in our data team. So we work to go and gather and clean sustainability data and make it available to anyone who might be interested.
Amazing. Emily?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Emily. I work at Fraser Nash Consultancy. I'm an engineer in their sustainability and environmental assurance team, and I'm very much a recent graduate, only started there about 5 months ago.
Lauren?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lauren. I work for ISG, which is a main contractor for global construction services, and I'm also on the graduate scheme, but I've been there for about 2 years and about to move into a sustainability advisor role.
And Paul.
Hi there. Welcome everyone. So I'm Paul Hayes. I'm the Regional Environmental Director for Cummins. You will all have seen Cummins products, but probably no one has ever seen Cummins at all. We can talk that. So I cover Europe, Africa, Middle East and Central Asia. And I graduated a long, long time ago. So can't put me as a graduate.
So before we started this webinar, we were all talking about how kind of the career into sustainability and environment has changed. So kind of, Louis, did you study anything related to environment to be linked to your role?
No, so yeah, my path wasn't really as straightforward. I studied economics and management at Leeds for 3 years, and then moved into an analytics role within the company, more focused on financial markets, and then was just slowly interested in the trend of sort of ESG, so sustainability within finance, which was something that's been growing quite a lot. And as the business sort of grew in terms of investors' interest, we started growing our teams, and so ended up migrating more towards our data teams and picking it up as we go. So I did external certifications to learn more about actual integration and what it really means beyond just sort of theoretical level, and that sort of allowed me to move into more of a sustainability role, but more with a focus on finance in the background.
So you didn't have to kind of have studied anything related to ESG or sustainability to take on your role, but I guess it helps to have a passion and an interest, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and we do interviews for candidates, is a lot of people are very passionate about the environment. It's very easy to say that. How a little bit of a step further and demonstrate a lot of that interest, and it's not necessarily about how did you do that particular subject at university, but it's are there any activities, is there any reading you've done, any way that you can more tangibly demonstrate your interest is very, very helpful to us to be able to demark, is this person just saying that, or are they genuinely passionate about the subject matter? Because as much as in my role is more focused on that data acquisition, cleaning, and so on, the subject matter still remains sustainability and ESG. And so if you don't understand the subject matter, you're going to be missing quite a lot of the underlying goal.
That's really interesting. Well, Lauren, you studied environmental science at university, didn't you? So what made you choose that subject? And had you always had this career path planned out?
I'd say I chose the subject based on an interest in sustainability. I loved geography at school, but I didn't want to take geography at university. I thought it was just a bit too broad. I was like, I want to take something more specific. And I've got a lot of friends who took geography, by the way, that have gone into environmental roles. So it's a viable option, but I wanted to just take something a little bit more specific, a little bit more focused around sustainability, based on my interest in it. But I never saw construction as a career path for me. It did not even enter my mind at any point. I thought I would go into a sort of a consultancy, environmental consultancy company. But then I did some work experience just before COVID with ISG, who I now work with. And I was like, oh, actually, construction, there's a lot to be done. And there's a lot of room for growth, which I found quite interesting. Like there's so much work that needs to be done in the construction industry to make it more sustainable. Because a lot of the time you do work and you think this is antithetical to what sustainability is, like literally extracting raw materials and building things out of concrete. Sometimes you're like, okay. So there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of growth, and my company and a lot of other construction main contractors are really passionate about innovation, and I found that a really interesting part of construction. So it was that room for growth and that interest combined that made me choose to go into construction in the end.
It's really, it is true. I really like your honesty of saying kind of it feels against what we should be doing. Emily, kind of a similar vein of organisation. What did you study before at university?
So I came from a kind of mixed background, social science sort of background. So I did geography at undergrad. I did physical geography. No, it's fine. But I mean, to be honest, I took mostly of those environmental science kind of modules. So I focused very much on things like water resources, climate change science. And for me, it just was, I loved geography at school. It was my favourite subject. So it was quite an obvious choice to take it at university. I finished that and I graduated right in the middle of COVID. So I was like, oh God, the world's upside down. I think I'll do a master's because I don't know what else to do. So I then went to King's and I took their master's in environment, politics and development. So actually that was completely different. It was very like politically focused. It was a lot about conflicts arising from a lack of global natural resources. So I was looking at things a lot bigger picture, very different to the fact I'm now in an engineering role. But it was really fascinating. And it's sort of, I think it's important to take in those like human perspectives, as well as like you've just got the physical natural environment, because I think that's what sustainability is. It's not just the physical environment, it's also the kind of society as a whole and like human and economic health. So that's been my path. And yeah, so I started just over 5 months ago here at Fraser Nash, and just really getting stuck in so many different projects.
Paul, a different journey for you. We were talking about previously, but it sounded like you've always had a passion kind of for the environment and sustainability. You said when you first joined Cummins that you came in as one of a few experts, and now you hire them at graduate level. What have you seen change, and what's your journey been?
So I started as a research scientist for a chemical company. As I say, I graduated with a chemistry degree a long time ago in the start of the 90s. And I spent a whole life working on products which we have now banned under the Montreal Protocol and everything else. If you think about all the chlorinated solvents that we used to use, I helped develop a lot of those. And so it was interesting that I started working on the environmental piece really through HSE. I'd gone from being a chemist to be doing more health and safety, to then start thinking about environment. And we were doing analysis of the River Mersey because the company had polluted it with mercury for the last 100 years. So how much mercury was in there? Can we clean it up? Can we take it out? So I was doing that type of chemistry, really looking at the bigger picture of a plant that had been running for 100 and odd years. So doing a health and safety requirement, started thinking about environment, left the company in 2004, and was offered a job as the environmental and technical manager for a company. had no experience other than what I've been doing, and really loved it. It was fantastic. Designing technologies for cleaning up air quality, water quality, running water treatment plants. It was just a different world altogether. And then I was offered a job with Cummins, as I say, as the environmental engineer at one of the sites here in the UK. And I've not stopped ever since. It's just been a whirlwind. I've been ended up as a business unit leader and now as a regional leader. So with no environmental qualifications until 2018, I took my master's in sustainability and environmental management, having already done the job. I did it at Staffordshire Uni, purely because I love the subject so much, and I thought, well, why not? Let's get more qualifications. That's what I did. So.
I feel like I could just sit and listen to you talking. Yes, okay. So Paul, just to kind of extend kind of what you were saying, how do you think kind of working within sustainability has changed over the years? You now recruit people into your teams kind of across the regions that you work on. What kind of projects are they working on that weren't around before, I suppose?
Well, so what we did was in 2012, I was asked to really think about sustainability. The word was still new. Very few people really were thinking about sustainability. We'd done a lot on health and safety, and every company in the world was really focusing on health and safety. We did a bit on the environment. The environmental management system had come in, and we had developed that, and we were all running with it. I mean, that was 2004 when we really started taking that on board. So to be in a position to say, right, what's next? We said, well, let's focus on the areas that we're good at. And my area of focus was environmental, but also air quality, GHG emissions. So then we said, well, we've got our facilities. So people are looking now at the facilities. How do we make them better? My graduate, who literally finishes tomorrow, he's just done a project looking at solar arrays. We've got a brand new one at Daventry just been built. We've got one at Huddersfield been designed, and one at Darlington, which is he had just finished designing. So that's his graduate year. Has been designing solar arrays and making sure that we get them installed. I mean, between the three projects, that's $6-7 million worth of projects that he's been looking after. We talk all dollars because we're an American company. Apologies for that one. But then on the other side, we've got products, and Cummins is known for diesel engines. So the buses that you've been running on, the trains that you go on, the trucks that go up and down with all the products, the food and everything that you see from Scania, from Nissan and so on, they're all our engines. The generators that you see at hospitals, during COVID, Emily was talking about COVID. The emergency hospitals we built for COVID, all the generators you saw outside them were all ours. But no one sees our name. We don't exist. Our product is everywhere. But as I was saying, we're a diesel engine manufacturer. How do we make those diesel engines better for the environment? Because we're not going to get rid of them tomorrow. But then also, how are we bringing in the new technologies? So I've got people working on the old technology, making them better, but people working on the new technologies, because we're now into batteries, we're into hybrids, we're into hydrogen generation, hydrogen use. All that work is really done in the different regions around the world, but in particular in Europe. So Europe's a fantastic place to be located if you're interested in sustainability and developing. So.
It must be really motivating working for an organisation that's changing the way that they're working, and you can see all of those developments. Because obviously there is a choice to come into an organisation that has been set up from a sustainable kind of who are new technology, new energy, and I'm sure both are interesting in their same ways. But I think I would feel quite motivated seeing that change.
That's kind of what I was saying with the construction industry, like that room for change and that willingness to grow and evolve and innovate and be on that front line of something new and exciting. Seeing our processes change every day and like seeing the company trying to get better, to be better, not because our clients are telling us to do it, not because everyone's forcing us to do it, but because the company really wants to improve as a social company, as a socially responsible company. That's really motivating. So I completely agree with what you're saying there, Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a passion and your colleagues have a passion and your leadership team have the passion, it's surprising how much you can do. We talk about how much can one person change. Well, we're here because we've changed a lot. But this one person's changed 70,000 employees to start thinking now about sustainability. Even if they only just do a bit each, it's made a massive difference to the world. So,
Louis, you must see this from a different perspective, right? So people are coming to you and Bloomberg for analysis to be able to make these smart decisions.
Yeah, exactly. So, for us, we work mainly in the financial space. Obviously, we've got corporate clients as well. But we know for the green transition to actually occur, that a lot of money needs to come in for the economy to change, right? And structurally, that's going to require a lot of money. Unfortunately, governments can't just be the ones piling in. And so the way the EU's approached it is try to put a lot of regulation out there to facilitate the transfer of capital towards green activities, right? We're not going to get too bogged down in regulation per se, but our job is to try and make those decisions or facilitate the decision making for investors. So investors want to understand how much Coca-Cola polluted versus Pepsi versus so on and so forth, and they can benchmark and have clear, transparent data that is easily accessible, and then they can integrate that into their financial analyses. For me, most hands-on we'll get is, and I think the most exciting is when we'll have companies reach out that say, we want to improve our performance, we don't know how, right? And in the financial space, there's been a big push for these things called ESG scores or sustainability scores, where companies or rating agencies will try and develop these scores and aggregate the performance of a company around E, S, and G, the environmental, social, and governance of a company. And so companies are going to come back to us and say, how can we improve this? Why are our peers better than us? And we can go and show them our models and say, on this, you're doing really well. But these 2 points, whether that's health and safety, like Paul was mentioning, or maybe environmental, water consumption, so on and so forth, we can very explicitly say these are the areas that your peers are doing better. This is where you can most improve, right? And ultimately, that can turn into, and we see that it does turn into actionable insights on the part of companies, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it must be really motivating. Emily, what projects are Fraser Nash working on currently that you're getting to get involved in?
A little bit of everything, really. You name it, we're starting to do it. So I'm part of the sustainability and environmental assurance team. So you can kind of categorize our work almost in 2 paths. So our sustainability side is looking at carbon accounting. So we will help an organization work out their carbon footprint. So you have all of their different scopes of emissions, everything that's coming into their organization and everything that is going out. We will look at it, and we can then, with them, help build a roadmap for them to get down to net zero, and using all of the sort of best practice and the real sort of legitimate standards to help an organization really get towards net zero. And then we have the environmental side. So we do a lot of environmental management for very big engineering projects. We work a lot with government sectors for their engineering work. And so we will make sure that the impacts and aspects of these projects are kept to as a minimum as possible. There are still going to be some, but it's to really just reduce what we can. And so that is anything from drones to submarines to aeroplanes. Like, we really do a whole range of stuff, and we have a dedicated renewables energy team who look at things such as wind farms. So those are the starts of projects that I've sort of been brought in on. So yeah, it's just a whole range of environmental legislation and management.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you for your last part of your sentence, Emily.
Oh no. I'm not sure where I was up to.
But they sound like really interesting projects.
Yeah.
And as a new graduate, you're getting to get kind of involved in those right from the beginning.
Very much so. It's not here at Fraser Nash, you're not put on a particular grad scheme. You are really just, you're brought into the team, and you just start by assisting on little bits of projects, and you sort of work up to maybe a bit more of a project management role after a few months. And then, because we are a consultancy, we do a lot of bid work, so we go out and we get jobs from clients, so you have that aspect as well. So it has been an amazing experience. And I think one thing that I'd like to mention is I work for an engineering company, but like, I'm not an engineer, so I didn't do engineering at university. My team is so diverse. So I come from like a social science background, but we do have people who did engineering at uni. We have people who did physics, who did chemistry. So I would urge, especially students and graduates, like, there isn't one degree that you have to do. You know, you can come from so many different backgrounds, and I think that's necessary because it is such a broad subject when you say the word sustainability.
Yeah, it's
fully agree with that one. No, sorry, Chloe.
No,
yeah, we're an engineering company. We're massive in terms of big product engineering. But as Emily was saying, I'm not an engineer. I got the title, but that's about as close as I got. But we need everyone to play the part. So, if you're in the supply chain, you're in purchasing, it doesn't matter where you sit. You've got your part to play. It's only by us working together that we can come up to this final solution, which is destination zero for us, which is net zero for most people, because we know the planet has to get there. We know we have to do it. We have no choice because we want to survive as people. The planet will continue without us, but will we be available and able to manage with the planet we've got? That's up to us to decide. So yeah, we need everyone. We've got loads. I mean, dare I say, we had 90 graduates last year go through our program. So we've got plenty of graduates. Everyone's an employee as far as I'm concerned. You're no different. You come in here to do a job, and part of your job is to help support the sustainability work that we do. So.
We've had lots of people ask. I'm keeping an eye on questions as they're coming through. Thank you for everyone that has already put those in. A lot of people asking about kind of routes into kind of sustainability roles. Did you find it? This is kind of more for Laura and Emily. Did you find it easy to find roles that suited your values and motivations, the organisations that you wanted to work for? We at Target Jobs put up kind of thousands of vacancies kind of every year, and I'm seeing more and more these roles coming up, and people will say, am I the only one doing this? I'm like, no, we're seeing ESG a lot, we're seeing sustainability a lot, we're seeing environmental a lot, and that wasn't there even 2 years ago, I would say. So what was your experience kind of with your career services and your departments, and then kind of the job hunt?
Go on, Emily.
Okay, I'll go quickly. I have to be completely honest. There are so many jobs out there. It can also get quite competitive. That is what I found, and I have to be honest. You can apply to jobs on LinkedIn, and if you apply on LinkedIn, you can see how many people have already applied to them, and you can see, something was posted a few days ago, and there were maybe a couple of hundred applications. So it can be slightly demoralizing, but I think because there are so many jobs that are appearing out there, and I think companies are being much more open to taking people from lots of different backgrounds. So, you know, I joined an engineering company, but I'm not an engineer. And so I think that is really, I think that's a really positive thing. And I think I like to think that it will only grow more, the sector will only grow more. And there are so many more degrees now that are specialising in things like sustainability that you can get that really good knowledge from uni.
I would say stay open-minded and don't close any doors to yourself, because you know there's more to a sustainability role than being a sustainability advisor or a sustainability consultant and having that jargon right in your name and in your job title. You know, I've got friends at work that joined the supply chain team, and then in their interview, you know, they expressed an interest in sustainability. They said, you know, that's something that I'm interested in, settled into the role, and now they've been enabled to do that as part of their job. And I think part of corporations' task and what we need to do is we're trying to embed sustainability into all of our processes. So we don't want it to be this, you are the sustainability person, off you go, save the planet. We don't want that. We want everyone to understand that each role has a part to play, and therefore I really wouldn't close any doors to yourself. Like, even if the job, it does not say sustainability in its title, does not mean that that's something that you can't go into or look at. And I think I would really suggest that in your interview process, if they ask you to ask a question, you know, ask them about sustainability. Are there pathways from this? Is there a way I can get involved in that? And because, like Emily said, it's so competitive, and sometimes you just need to get a job, you know, and if it's not the perfect job right away, I think that's okay. There's other routes than just like going directly into a sustainability job, because of that embedding of sustainability in everything that we're doing.
We find that you've got to be enthusiastic, you've got to really have a passion, but you've got to enjoy the job that you're going for. It's no use you going in there saying, I'm going to do this for a couple of months, because we will see it. We will see it in the interview. We will see it when you start working. If you're miserable in that job role, you're either going to leave straight away or we're going to ask you to leave, but you will not be happy. When we're looking at people to get promoted up to the next role, no, we don't have to go looking for people. No, we've brought people in, but I can tell you, no, people would just say, what do you think about Lauren? What do you think about Emily or Lewis? And everyone knows them. Everyone's talked to them. Everyone's seen what they're up to. That's far better for me to say, oh, let's give them a go, than it is to say, well, no, has anyone talked to Paul lately? Have we heard from Paul lately? No. So why would we bother? So
yeah, that's a big part of working in sustainability as well, is you are kind of like a salesperson. You know, I feel like every day I go around and I'm like trying to pitch sustainability to some people. And in the industry that I work in, it's a very it has been tainted as old-fashioned in the, you know, it gets called all sorts of things. Construction is like a victim of its own processes. You know, sometimes it's so stuck in its ways that it can be, you know, you're working with and against people at the same time, and you have to be willing to engage in communication and conversation and really understand, like Emily said, the human side of sustainability and the attitudes towards it. And having a passion about it makes that so much easier, because if you can go in and really explain why it's important, not just for the environment, but for the business to be robust and the business to exist 10 years, 100 years down the line, you need to be interested and actually invested in that. And this is something that we've flagged. You know, I was asked recently, like, how do we filter out people that are just saying they like sustainability because they can see it as a viable career option, and people that actually care about it? And like Paul said, I think you can kind of smell it from a mile away if someone doesn't really care in any way. So yeah.
And I mean, to add to that, I think for sustainability at its core is cross-functional. So if you come from a sustainability background, that's amazing, because you can be a subject matter expert in, say, water, right, GHG emissions, so on and so forth. But if you're not, if you come from a different background, an engineering background, an economics background, whatever that is, every company is having to consider how climate change and sustainability is going to impact its operations. So we all have a role to play. And if you really understand your area of expertise, whether that's engineering, so on and so forth, and then you can embed a bit of that sustainability and show those cross-functional links, that's going to make all the difference. That's how you're going to get buy-in from the important stakeholders and so on, and the decision makers. So sort of echoing a little bit what Lauren, Paul, and Emily have said, but everyone's going to have to really get involved with sustainability, sort of whether they like it or not, because businesses don't really have a choice if they want to sort of stand up in terms of their business model.
So if you do like it, it's it's very helpful if you do like it.
I'm going to start moving through onto the questions, but kind of the first ones that came through do tie into this, which is about sectors to choose from. Now, I'm hoping that we've demonstrated already on this webinar that we've got people within finance, analytics and advice, property, construction, engineering, manufacturing. But I think kind of what's come through in your conversations is that it is everyone's responsibility. All organizations have a vested interest in it, some in different ways. Some will be much more practical, like Paul has explained about changing the use of the engines. Others will be more advisory and more consultative. But if you think about every sector, take travel and hospitality, retail, Louis, you must see this in terms of the organizations that come to you in terms of advice. Would you say that there would be sustainability and ESG roles across every sector?
Yeah, I'm thinking through like the classification system we have for companies. There is not a single sector I can think of that hasn't, in some way, shape, or form, had to consider sustainability, whether that's, across the sort of green transition or otherwise. Temperatures going up will have impact on operations, right? If it's colder, maybe more people will be buying ice cream. If it's warmer, it's harder to produce chocolate. Whatever it is, everyone sort of has to consider these factors because it impacts everyone. So I think you'll be very hard pressed to find a single sector that will have zero consideration for sustainability. Everyone has sort of a role to play.
But I think maybe the advice here is maybe the size of an organization. Large organizations will have more roles and funds and a higher drive for this than maybe a smaller company. Obviously, there are small companies that are really energized and focused on this. So I am broad brushing this, but maybe if someone was looking for roles that directly link to sustainability and ESG, they should probably look for a larger organization rather than a small one.
Sure. Yeah, I think we see that with the role of investor relations in companies, where the larger the company, the more it makes sense for them and more they have capacity for putting money towards that. There are also activities that are not companies per se, right? There are also roles in NGOs and stuff like that. So GFANS, which is one of the Glasgow Alliance groups and stuff like that, you've got a lot of those roles as well, where in those NGOs they need people to get things done, to campaign for their cause and so on and so forth. And some of those will be, very climate and sustainability focused as well. So I think we host the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero in our building, and they're sort of a separate entity that try and address net zero for on a larger scale.
Just on that, sorry, Chloe, as well. Sometimes I find a large organisation isn't always like the correct route for you for whatever you desire from your career, but what you do find with the larger the company, usually the more nuanced the roles can be as well. They've got more resource to say, you can be a sustainable procurement manager, you can be a sustainable supply chain, you can be a data specialist. So normally, at least in the company that I work in, I've seen in my short time working with ISG, the roles become more nuanced and more separated as we want to prioritize and really get to the nitty gritty of how we can embed sustainability. So that's something to consider. Sometimes the larger organizations have more options for you. And then we have a whole social value team at ISG as well, which is another branch of sustainability that used to be within our role as sustainability advisors, but then they've split. They have their own team, and that's got 50 odd people in it now, and that's only happened over the last year and a half. So that used to be something that, just like how environment and sustainability used to be shoved into the health and safety managers sort of portfolio. Now with social value used to be in ours, and that's also being separated out. So you're seeing that start to happen in large companies.
Yeah, I mean, we've got social governance teams, social responsibility teams, community involvement teams. A lot of these people are professionals doing that job, but we also got people whose part-time role is to do the work. But on the environment side, for me, I've got a water specialist, I've got a waste specialist, I've got an energy specialist team. No, it's not one person, it's a whole team of people. Now, as Lauren was saying, that we can become very specialised in one subject, but sometimes being general and being able to do anything and everything is really good. No, I came from an organisation. No, it was a family-run concern. It was me, and that was it. Everything to do with environment, sustainability, the lot was just me. I learned loads. I was there for 4 years, before Cummins came along and took me. But I was there for 4 years, and I loved it because I learned so much. So don't be blinkered on, I need to get into a big company. Just blinker on, I want to be happy in my job. I enjoy my job. And then it will progress from there, and you'll really find the role that suits you. And these roles are getting more and more. They're not disappearing anytime soon. So.
Looking through the questions, there's lots and lots of people that are asking for very specific advice relating to their courses and roles they could do in organisations they can work for. I would suggest going to your career service with those specific questions, or you can research roles and organisations on Target Jobs. I'm afraid the panel here kind of know about their roles and their organisations, but kind of it would be a tough ask for to ask them to name specific organisations. So apologies if I don't ask your question specifically, but what I will say is there's lots of questions about, I'm really passionate, how can I transfer my business studies or my civil engineering or my chemical engineering? I hope you've got the answers from this webinar, that actually we've got a range of recent graduates and not so recent graduates on the webinar that have come from different backgrounds and studied different things and are working on ESG and sustainability from different perspectives, kind of whether you're like Louis, who kind of studied kind of finance and economics and data analyst and took his passion to be able to work onto ESG within Bloomberg, or someone like Laura and Emily, who kind of taken that route straight through university and kind of gone with that direction straight away. So and as Paul has said kind of throughout this webinar, as long as you do something that you enjoy, you will be happy and successful doing it. And so kind of I think we can all agree that you should just follow that passion, and hopefully you'll find those roles. So apologies if I am missing any of your questions.
There are a few things, if you think about it. It's some key skills that we will all have, and which really help. Effective communication being one of them. I don't think any of us would be sat here if we didn't think we're good enough to actually talk to people. It's not our normal day job, but we're enjoying it. And relationship development, being able to get on with other people and work with them. Lauren was saying she goes out and talks to people and tries to get them to do what she wants them to do. That's a key skill. Leadership for change. Louis is there saying you have to change. This is how you must change. But it's his leadership skills that allow people then to start thinking, oh yeah, I could change. Problem solving. It's very easy. We've got a big problem here. How we're going to solve it? You've done your degree. And Emily was talking before. takes you so far, and that's it. It's the next stage is really, well, how do I solve these problems for people? How do I take what needs to be done, what my knowledge was, and really help people drive it forward? So key skills, but key skills for everybody. Doesn't matter what job function you end up in, there's still good skills to have available to you. So
yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Ella's asked a really interesting question. I will read it word for word. Do you ever feel hopeless in your efforts when you see companies commit unethical acts or refuse to adapt to sustainable methods, etc.? And how do you keep yourselves motivated to continue trying to introduce positive influences into a world and our personal lives?
I actually thought about this before coming on the call, because as I said, when I introduced myself, sometimes what I do, I can only speak for myself, we're taking materials, we're knocking things down. You go to a construction site, you don't look at it like it's some sort of like Garden of Eden, French Riviera sustainability. It's not the most beautiful place to go. And sometimes you look at it and you go, God, like, what is this sustainable? Is there any way to make this sustainable? And one thing I always give advice to people that I mentor at work, or sort of back at uni, I sort of talk to some other graduating students. I say, do not try and take that burden of a burning world on your shoulders. It's not something that you individually need to not worry about, because obviously it's a concern for everyone, but you need to try and realize it's a truly collaborative process and everyone's got a role to play, and to not feel that weight on you, because I've felt it before where you're like, I just feel awful, like this is just nothing's changing quick enough, is what I'm doing fruitless and hopeless and all of this. And that is something you have to communicate, because that can be really harnessed into a positive thing. That shows a level of compassion and care that other people might not have. But at the same time, you have to be careful not to let that weigh you down to the point where you don't try and you don't believe and have faith. Because if you don't sort of believe that you can make a difference, then it kind of is pointless. You have to stay positive, and small victories, small wins, small changes can really add up when you think about all the companies that are doing it, and think about all these industries that we've got here today. Like, all of them link in some way or another. Like Emily's company might one day consult on an ISG project, that might use generators from Cummins, and we might get a report from Louis, it's about how we can be better. So it's truly collaborative.
What am I going
to do? You will moderate the whole thing perfectly. We'll invite you to every meeting. But that's what I think. I was thinking about this earlier, and it can feel heavy, because it's quite a heavy topic, especially you look at literally the news this week, how heavy that's going to make you feel. But ultimately understanding that there's lots of people that want to make a difference, and really focusing on the good things is the most important thing to do. Otherwise it can be draining.
Yeah, I think, like, building on what Lauren said, like, you're not responsible as a person for every single thing that's going on horribly around the world to do with the environment. You only have so much power in your hands, and I think taking those little steps is really important. As a company, we do quite a lot of work with the defence industry, so we work a lot with the Ministry of Defence, which can sometimes feel a bit like, why are we doing that? They're building tanks. They're like, that's the worst thing you can do to the environment. They're crushing all the flowers. But if you can sort of make one person slightly change their viewpoint slightly, and realize that the environmental stuff is not a tick box, there are actual regulations, there are stuff we need to do. And also from a moral point of view, when there are things that you can do, maybe you should do them. So if you just start getting those occasional people to really change their mindset, I think it will be like a domino effect, and more people will make changes. But yeah, I think you cannot take on all onto your own shoulders everything that's going on around the world.
No, we do say pick your battles, and sometimes you have to really think about where you're going to work. For us as a company, or you as an individual, where do you want to focus your effort and time, and what do you want to really make a difference? I had a boss he used to work for Cummins in the 70s and 80s. He ran the company, and it was basically, we were talking about the Clean Air Act. Now, it was before any emissions regulations or anything. And he said, the business benefits of me doing this work far outweigh the cost. And in certain markets in the world, we now supply the diesel engines because we'd done the modifications, we'd done the work. Our competitors didn't. They're no longer operating. They dropped off. They no longer exist as companies, or they've stopped working in that market. So again, he focused on what he could do and what was right for him and the company, as opposed to worrying about what other people were trying to do. So
I think if you start bringing in those kind of terms of like efficiency and, you know, good value for money, and actually how it will save people time and money, that can sometimes really help get the point across as well with some of the sustainability issues.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, for my company, we've spent a lot of money on environmental sustainability work, on improvements, facility upgrades, brand new buildings that we put in. The average payback is now less than 5 years. So there's a good financial benefit for doing this work, as well as the environmental benefit. You know, use the skills that we've talked about to really focus on where can you make a difference, and then the rest will fall into place. That's for certain.
Agreed.
So.
Yeah.
That does tie into kind of the next couple of questions that have come in. So Ella asked about how you found a company that fits with your values, kind of how can you tell what's true and what's a PR attempt? And then Amelia kind of carries on from that to ask about kind of greenwashing. So how can you navigate working for a business that doesn't greenwash and it actually works on projects and avoiding organizations that work on projects that go against sustainability? I think it's interesting that there will be organizations that really, you know, their role is to address sustainability and work on things, and others it might be coming from a more commercial point of view and a need. But does that make it a bad thing? Is the outcome the same? How did you find navigating and making sure you picked organizations that fitted your values and how you wanted to address and work within sustainability?
I mean, I can try. Yeah, in terms of greenwashing, we are a data provider, right? So our job is trying to make sure companies specifically don't do that. That is an impossibly difficult task, right? And part of the thing we have is people like Emily who do assurance services are going to look at the actual operations of the company and actually certify what are your emissions, right? Are you just pulling these out of nowhere? Or, you know, can we trace these back to actual things that have happened? So all of these things are really interlinked. But in terms of finding a good company culture, coming to these events and talking to the people that work there and seeing, do they enjoy working there, right? What, beyond just the core role, what aspects of the culture are there? Are there certain things like volunteering? Is there certain things where you can reach out to anyone in the company at any point? I've been here for 3 years. I have reached out to people 25 years my senior over, you know, our internal messaging system, just saying, hi, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you do. Can we grab a coffee? I've never been turned away. It's hard to get those from the outside, but, you know, shooting a message to somebody, maybe an alumna from your university on LinkedIn or so on and so forth, maybe somebody from across, you know, these panels, all of these things really, really help in terms of getting an understanding. Do they enjoy their time working there? Are there specific things that you value? So again, I mentioned volunteering. That's something that's really, really important to me. And so we get a lot of opportunities to get involved as an organization, so on and so forth. Yeah, there's no right answer, but it's understanding what you value and then trying to see the people that work there, do they seem to value the same things? And oftentimes that'll be through, you know, conversations that, you know, you can try and have.
Yeah, mine was all about a willingness to sort of learn and grow. I'm understanding of the fact that, like you said, Chloe, it's not always a bad thing to to not be a company that exists solely for sustainability. Like, again, construction, it doesn't exist, it has a purpose. It is to create built assets for our clients for a need, and construction is a necessity. We need roofs over our heads, we need places to be educated and go to school and learn and socialize. So with that, it's important to just not to judge too harshly if someone's not being perfect. A lot of companies are perfectly imperfect right now, and it's that willingness to change. If you go for an interview, or if you I looked at a lot of like annual reporting from companies, like how far up the agenda in their annual report was sustainability, or was it a footnote at the bottom of the thing that they released? They might say, oh yeah, our carbon emissions were this, but they didn't really disclose how they've tracked that, or why, or what their goals were going forward. That's not a great look. But if there was a clear indication that there's a willingness to grow, a willingness to learn, and you can get on board and be part of that, I think that's really a really exciting place to be, to sort of support and hold their hand as they evolve as a company.
Yeah, and I should say, I joined Cummins 2008. I'd done environmental management. I put environmental management systems in. The actual ISO standard came out, in 2004? No, we weren't talking sustainability at the time. We weren't talking big environmental. But what Lewis was saying is right. The culture in the company was just right for me to work there. The people I had met during the interview process just said, oh, I like this company. No, I went for 18 months. No, that's my contract. My initial contract was 18 months. Now, I'm coming up for 16 years working here. And you don't stay for 16 years unless you really do start enjoying the place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't worry about, greenwashing I do go against. People do put things together. Louis again said it. You can tell most of these things you can tell, they're just saying it for the sake of saying it. Tom Linebarger, our boss, our CEO, has just retired. I had a meeting with him once, and he said, oh no, that's greenwashing. That is just you trying to put a green spin on this. And that was it. End of story. There was no way on this earth he was going to let anything go out which was just sort of, you're putting it out just for the sake of it. And it was a culture that we still have now. He's just about to retire, but it continues, and you can see it. So.
I have 3 more questions in 7 minutes. It might be. I'm hoping these are quick. Someone has asked about certifications and credentials around sustainability. Has anyone got any recommendations that they can throw out quickly?
IEMA. Just have a look at the IEMA website.
Yeah.
That's probably a good place to go. You can become a member quite easy. They'll give you all the skills. A lot of the skills I've just talked about came direct from their website because I copied it this morning. So, yeah, IEMA.net is their website. So.
From the finance side of things, SASB, so Sustainable Accounting Standards Board, or CFA, ESG, both are great certifications that are maybe more focused on the actual integration of sustainability within investment. So it's a slightly different point of view.
Yep.
Thank you. And thanks for the quick answer. Ella has asked, are there any recommended areas of sustainability that we can research in our own time? Are there any recommended readings or areas that you kind of think would benefit kind of applicants to be able to talk about at interview?
I think carbon is the obvious one to really be clued up on carbon. But I'd also emphasize circularity, and circular economy is becoming a really, really, really big topic, especially from a construction perspective, using materials and reuse and all of this. So I would say, circular economy and circularity as well, from my perspective.
Yeah, you've got also the Global Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 areas. Pick and choose which ones you like. No, we do 10 out of those 17. We don't do them all, but there's something in there for every one of you. So
Super. And then to finish, I think it's a really interesting question here from Michelle, which is talking about kind of buzzwords, but where do you see sustainability shifting in the future? She specifically pulls out CSV, creating shared value. This is probably more that you're understanding more than mine, but where do you see the role of sustainability, your roles, the future roles? What will future graduates be doing within organizations?
I think a lot more integration with just so many other sectors. Like we have a specific sustainability environmental team here, and we do our own services. But I think integrating that into every single aspect of, well, from my point of view, engineering, and so that it's not sold as like a separate service. It's sold as part of every kind of project or opportunity that comes. So I think just seeing it less on its own, in its own little bubble, but just as part of just an everyday offering from all different types of work.
I echo that. Agreed.
Yeah, agreed with that one.
Oh, wow, I thought that one was ages. You spent ages talking over that one.
Be careful what you wish for. We will ramble.
And that's the trouble we can do, but it's we should think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look, the questions have finished up. It's 3 minutes to 3. Oh, hang on. Ella's come in at right at the last minute. Do you think? Oh God, Ella, I hope this is a positive answer. Do you think in our lifetime we will see our efforts come into fruition, or is it more for future generations?
Well, I should answer that one because I'm probably at the end of the I'm retiring shortly in a few years. Shall we put it that way? So, and I think the other, well, at least 3 of you on the panel are same age as my sons. So yeah, we have to be careful what I say. But the world has changed so much in my working lifetime. It is unbelievably the difference. We're in the 70s, we're having environmental issues that no one cared less about. Now, if you have an environmental pollution event, even a small one, the world knows about it. We can, it's unbelievable the amount of change that I have seen. I am expecting by 2050, the whole world will have changed again. It's not going to happen. No, it's not going to stop. No, you will see it in your lifetime, that's for certain. In 2050, I'll be 87, so questionable whether or not I'll see it, but I'm hoping to. My dad's actually 87 at the moment, so it all stands in good for me. But you will see it in your lifetime. Your children certainly will see it, and everything I've done is for my kids and their kids as they come through. So no, it's not stopped me, and it will not stop me, at least until I start finishing up and winding up. So.
Well, panel, thank you very much for a really enjoyable and insightful hour. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you for all of your insights, your knowledge, your experience, and your advice. I hope those who've been watching have really enjoyed it and have taken something from it. I will make sure that we send out details of the organisations here today. So that's Cummins, Fraser Nash. I'm running out of words now. Fraser Nash, ISG, and Bloomberg, and so we will distribute those. So thank you very much, panel. Thank you for all those who are watching. We have been running these panel webinars for the last few months through Target Jobs. So thank you to those at my end at Target Jobs for arranging all of these. Thank you to all the students and graduates that have been watching and contributing and adding questions. I hope you'll have a lovely summer and successful job applications.
Don't say that. Don't get any summer holidays anymore. God, it's making me sad just before I end the call.
Yeah, sorry, we all got to continue working.
Yeah. And we
you're all saving the world.
Oh yeah, true. Lots to do.
Lots to do. So thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.